in the stillness of your heart. Have you ever heard a whisper, a soft, unsettling truth? You are going to die. Not in a distant theoretical way, not someday, but truly you, with your thoughts, your memories, your soft hands and stories, will vanish like the dew on morning grass. The breath you're holding right now, it too will pass. And yet how strange it is that we live as though we are invincible. In Buddhist practice, the contemplation of death is not an obsession with darkness, but a path to awakening. To remember death is to remember life. It's not about fear, it's about clarity. Clarity so sharp and honest that it slices through the noise of modern existence like a blade through illusion. There is a well-known teaching in Tibetan Buddhism, Marana-sati, the mindfulness of death. Monks are trained to meditate in cremation grounds, to sit beside burning bodies, not to harden the heart, but to soften it. Because when the mind realizes that everything, the beautiful, the ugly, the mundane, is impermanent, something extraordinary happens. We begin to truly live. A Zen master once held up a cup during a teaching and said, "I see this cup as already broken." The students were confused. "Because I know it's already broken," he continued, "I cherish it more deeply, drink from it with gratitude, and when it shatters I say, of course." Imagine that. What if you saw your life as already broken, not in despair but in reverence? What if each hug you gave, each conversation you had, each quiet morning coffee were the last? Would you still scroll mindlessly? Would you still carry grudges like armor? There's a story of an old woman in Nebraska, long retired, widowed, children grown and gone. Her days had become a soft blur, coffee, television, small errands, but then came the diagnosis: 6 months to live. At first panic, then silence, then presence. She began to tend her garden again, not with urgency, but with wonder. She started calling old friends, not to fix the past, but to say thank you. She found herself staring longer at the evening sky, whispering to it as though it were a friend she'd forgotten she had. Nothing outside her had changed, but everything inside her had awakened. You see, most people are not truly alive. They're living in the ghost house of the mind, pacing hallways made of past regrets and future anxieties. They think they're awake, but they're dreaming. Dreaming that life is happening elsewhere, in the next achievement, the next apology, the next chapter. But life has never been anywhere but here, in this very breath. Buddha spoke of dukkha, suffering, not as punishment, but as a misunderstanding, a misalignment with reality. We suffer not because life is painful, but because we forget it's fleeting. We expect permanence in an impermanent world. We cling, and so the path begins not with a new technique or philosophy, but with a moment of remembering. Remembering that no one escapes, not kings, not monks, not you. And in that remembering, a spaciousness opens. A kind of sacred permission arises to let go of pretending, of performing, of postponing love. So let me ask you gently, if you knew you would die in 1 year, what would you stop doing today? What would you finally say? What would you let go of, not out of guilt, but out of tenderness? There is a Tibetan saying, "Death is certain, the time is uncertain." But in that uncertainty, there is a strange kind of freedom. The freedom to be honest, to forgive faster, to speak softer, to waste fewer hours caught in thoughts that never mattered. To remember death is not morbid. It is sacred. It is the great clarifier. And from that clarity, a new kind of life can begin, not one driven by fear, but one guided by presence. In a quiet forest temple in Japan, a young monk once asked his master, "What is the most important teaching?" The old man simply replied, "Remember that you will die." The boy frowned. "That's all?" The master looked at him, eyes like still water, and said, "Yes, because if you truly remember that, you'll forget everything that doesn't matter." We live in a world full of forgetting, not the innocent kind, like where you left your keys, but a deeper forgetting. We forget what it means to be alive. We forget how miraculous it is just to breathe, to feel the sunlight on our skin, to hear the laughter of someone we love. Why? Because we're caught in the swirl of thought. Thoughts of what we must do. Thoughts of what we failed to do. Thoughts of what others think, of what we deserve, of what we fear. We mistake this inner chatter for who we are, but you are not your thoughts. You are not your sadness, your anger, or even your joy. These are weather systems, passing moods. You, the real you, are the sky in which they move. Imagine this. You're standing in a meadow, the wind stirring the tall grass. Clouds race overhead, heavy and dark. For a while, they block the sun, but then they pass, and the sky, your sky, is untouched. It was never damaged, only hidden. That's how it is with your awareness. In Buddhist psychology, this is called Rigpa, the luminous mind, the clear knowing that exists beneath every storm. When you stop identifying with the clouds, you begin to rest in the sky. Peace isn't something you create. It's what remains when the noise settles. But that's not how we're taught to live, is it? We're taught to chase, to gather, to accumulate experiences, possessions, praise. The modern world is built on striving. But what happens when you spend your whole life climbing a ladder, only to realize it was leaning against the wrong wall? There's a man I once knew, mid-70s, retired CEO. He had it all, a sprawling home, a family that looked perfect in Christmas cards, a resume polished to gold, but his nights were hollow. He told me once, over tea, "I climbed every mountain they said to climb, but I never stopped to ask, whose map was I following?" He wasn't bitter, just tired. Tired of pretending, tired of being a character in someone else's play. He had spent decades chasing a self that was never truly his. And it wasn't until he began reading Buddhist texts, almost by accident, that he started to understand maybe peace isn't in becoming something more. Maybe it's in unbecoming what you're not. Let's pause here. Have you ever asked yourself, who am I? Really, beyond the job, beyond the roles, father, wife, teacher, survivor, beyond even the name on your ID? Who is there when all that is taken away? In many traditions, this question is the gateway to freedom, not because it gives you a new answer, but because it helps you release the old illusions. Your identity, your self-image, your story, they are garments. Useful, yes. Necessary, sometimes. But not you. You, in the deepest sense, are not a fixed thing. You are process. You are breath moving in and out. You are awareness watching a thought rise and fall. You are this moment, unfolding. And when you remember that, not just as an idea but as a lived experience, something tender arises, a kind of humility, a softness. You stop needing to prove anything. You begin to live not from habit, but from intention. It's not easy. The ego clings. The old patterns don't like to die. But neither do lotus flowers bloom in shallow soil. Sometimes it takes a little death, of pride, of certainty, of control, for a truer life to emerge. So let me ask you again, what are you clinging to that is not really yours? A title, an old wound, a version of yourself that no longer fits. And what would happen if, just for a moment, you set it down? There's a gentle grief that comes when you realize how much you've been carrying that was never truly yours. Old guilt, inherited expectations, silent griefs that no one else could name. They settle in the body like dust in an empty room, unnoticed but heavy. In yogic philosophy, these are called rananubandhas, emotional residues left by past attachments, memories, even physical contact. And whether we believe in past lives or not, we know this emotional weight has gravity. Think of the woman who always flinches when someone raises their voice, not because she's fragile, but because once, long ago, someone taught her that love could sound like thunder. Think of the man who cannot cry, though he longs to, because somewhere he was told that tears make him less worthy. These weights live in us like echoes, long after the moment has passed. But what if healing isn't about fighting the weight, but about noticing it? In the teachings of mindfulness, noticing is the first mercy. When we turn toward our pain, instead of away, we invite it into the light of awareness. And in that light, something mysterious happens. The grip begins to loosen. Not because we forced it, but because we finally saw it for what it was, a shadow, not a self. There's a parable in the Buddhist canon of a man shot with an arrow. He's in pain, bleeding, desperate, but instead of removing the arrow, he demands to know, who shot me? What caste were they? What kind of bow did they use? And while he seeks all this knowledge, he dies from the wound. We do this too, don't we? We analyze, we dissect, we tell stories about our suffering instead of tending to it. We want explanations more than healing. But life, precious, brief life, is not waiting for us to solve every mystery. It's asking us to live. Now, this moment is enough. This breath is enough. The wound doesn't need to be understood to begin to mend. It needs kindness. It needs presence. And presence begins when we stop running. I remember speaking with a hospice nurse once. Decades of sitting beside the dying had made her voice slow, rich with silence. She told me that when people die, they don't talk about their resumes or regrets about money. They talk about love, about moments when they felt seen, about sunlight on a kitchen floor, about the smell of their mother's hands. It's never the big things, she said. It's always the quiet ones, the ones they didn't know were sacred until they were gone. You know this already, don't you? Somewhere in you there is a knowing that doesn't speak in words. It speaks in long pauses, in tears that come without reason, in the ache behind your ribs when you hear an old song. That is the part of you that remembers, not just death, but life, real life, soft, fleeting, incomparable. So why do we wait? Why do we postpone joy like it's a luxury? Why do we walk past beauty on our way to something we think is more important? Perhaps it's time to choose differently, to rise in the morning and say, today I will not miss my life. Today I will not wait to be whole or healed or ready. Today I will walk barefoot on the earth of my own heart. I will listen more, speak less, offer softness where I once gave sharpness. And if grief comes, I will make tea for it. If joy comes, I will not ask it to prove itself. You are not too late. You are not too broken. You are not your past. You are this breath, and this breath is enough to begin again. Imagine a candle flickering in a dark room. The light it gives is soft, not dazzling, but steady. This is what it means to live consciously, not dramatically, not perfectly, but awake. To be conscious is to walk through life with your eyes open, your hands unclenched, and your heart tender to both joy and sorrow. And this ordinary miracle is what it means to prepare for a good death, not through control, not through fear, but through presence. In the Buddhist tradition, a conscious death doesn't mean choosing the hour or the method. It means choosing the way you live until that moment. How you breathe, how you speak, how you forgive, how you touch the world, knowing that soon you will no longer walk upon it. A monk once said, "Live as if you are already dead." At first it sounds grim, but look deeper. When there is nothing to protect, there is nothing to fear. When there is nothing to cling to, your hands are finally free to hold what matters. Let's take the story of an elderly man named Harold. He lived alone in a quiet coastal town, having outlived his wife and many of his friends. By every external measure, his life was small. Daily walks, the same grocery store, evenings spent in a worn armchair. But Harold had learned something most people never do, how to be fully here. He would stop mid-walk to admire a bird's song. He spoke to strangers as if each one held a secret worth discovering. And every night, before bed, he would whisper a simple prayer. "Thank you for this day. If I wake, I will live it well. If I do not, let me go with peace." Harold died in his sleep, at peace, with no regrets. Not because he lived a life of fame or grand gestures, but because he had been awake, truly awake. This is the invitation, to live with hands that don't clutch, with eyes that seek wonder, with a heart that forgives itself, even when it forgets. You may think it's too late, that your habits are too old, that your mistakes are too many. But please hear this. Awakening doesn't require time, it requires willingness. A single breath taken with reverence can change your life. A single act of letting go of an old bitterness, a stale identity, a false urgency can reopen the door to freedom. You are not here to perform. You are here to remember the feeling of water on your skin, to remember the stillness of early morning, to remember that you are more than the roles you play, and that even now, even as the world rushes on, you can step out of the current and simply be, let go of the script, the need to be right, the pressure to achieve. What if your value was never based on your usefulness? What if, instead, your worth was measured in moments of gentleness, in how kindly you speak to yourself, in how deeply you allow others to be seen? This is how you die well, not with fanfare, but with grace, not with your name etched in stone, but with your love etched in the hearts of those you touched. You cannot control the hour of your death, but you can shape the soul of your life. So ask yourself, what would it look like today to live like someone who knows their time is precious? What would it feel like to love without holding back, to forgive before it's deserved, to slow down enough to really see, not someday, not when things settle down, but now? There is a quiet kind of power in choosing to live deliberately, not as a reaction, but as a response. To pause before you speak, to feel before you judge, to open your hands and ask, what do I want to carry, and what have I carried for too long? In Buddhist psychology, the word karma is often misunderstood. It's not punishment. It's not fate. Karma simply means action, and more importantly, intention. The seeds we plant with our thoughts, words, and choices will bloom in the soil of our future. Most of us live by habit, automatic thoughts, inherited beliefs, recycled reactions. But you, even now, no matter your age, your past, your story, have the power to shift, to plant different seeds. There's a story of a woman named Teresa, in her 60s, who had lived most of her life in survival mode, a difficult childhood, a string of betrayals. She had built walls not just around her heart, but around her entire being. People admired her strength, her efficiency, but they didn't really know her. Then one day, after her grandson asked her why she never smiled, something cracked. Not in a dramatic way, just a soft fracture in the armor. She didn't answer him. She couldn't. But that night, she sat in her room, in the hush of evening, and asked herself, when did I forget how to be gentle? She began small, watching the sunrise instead of the news, apologizing when she snapped, writing letters to people she'd once loved, even if she never sent them. Slowly, the habits of defense began to loosen. Her life didn't change overnight, but her relationship to it did. She began living not by default, but by design. That is what it means to awaken, not to escape your life, but to return to it. Eyes clear, heart open. You are not an animal trapped by instinct. You are not the sum of your traumas. You are not the voices that told you who to be. You are the one who chooses what story to live in now. And yes, sometimes, even with all this wisdom, the old fears return. The mind spins. The heart clenches. You forget again. That's okay. The practice is not to never forget. It's to return, again and again, to what matters, like a bell that rings each morning, calling you home. So what if today you chose not to believe every thought that passed through your mind? What if you questioned the urgency, the comparison, the self-criticism? What if you paused and remembered, you are not your thoughts, you are the one who sees them? That shift alone, from identification to observation, is liberation. There is a metaphor in Zen. Thoughts are like wild horses. You can chase them endlessly and be dragged across the plains of your own mind, or you can sit, still as the mountain, and watch them run. Which do you choose? Your peace does not lie in controlling every thought, fixing every emotion, or perfecting every moment. Your peace lies in being present within them, softly, without grasping, without pushing away. And the more you return to that stillness, not as an escape, but as a home, the more life opens its quiet beauty to you. The sound of wind through trees, the face of someone you love when they think you're not looking, the miracle of your own breath, which has never left you, even when you left yourself. You don't have to be perfect to begin again. You don't have to be free of pain to choose tenderness. You don't have to understand the whole path to take one conscious step. Just begin. Somewhere in the hush between your inhale and your exhale, there is a doorway, not a place, but a possibility. It leads not outward, but inward, to the only home you've ever truly had, your own awareness. The modern world offers 1,000 distractions. We are invited constantly to fix ourselves by fixing something external. The job, the body, the relationships, the home. It's not that these things don't matter, but none of them, not one, can bring the kind of peace that comes from turning toward the inner life with honesty and tenderness. True transformation does not begin with control, it begins with truth. In the Buddhist path there's a word, satya, truthfulness, but not just telling the truth to others. It's about telling the truth to yourself, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it reveals the cracks in your armor. There is a difference between being broken and being open, and often we cannot tell one from the other until much later. A man named Lewis spent most of his life in a constant state of doing. He was the fixer, the reliable one, the one who held everything together. But when his wife died suddenly, the illusion of control shattered. He couldn't sleep, couldn't focus. He described it as falling through the floor of his own life. At first, he tried to fill the void with action, volunteering, remodeling the kitchen, reading self-help books, but nothing touched the ache. It wasn't until he began sitting in silence each morning, just for 5 minutes, that the healing began. He didn't do anything special. He simply stopped doing. In that silence, tears came, and with them, memories, regret, gratitude, all the love he hadn't known how to express while she was alive. He told me, "I thought the silence would kill me, but it was the first thing that made me feel alive again." You see, suffering that is not faced becomes suffering that controls us, but suffering that is met with presence begins to shift, to melt, not all at once, but moment by moment, like ice touched by the sun. When you turn inward, when you sit with your own heart without trying to fix it, something holy happens. You stop running, you stop pretending, you simply meet yourself, perhaps for the first time. And what you find there is not weakness, it's wisdom. Buddha did not promise a life free of pain. He offered a path beyond suffering, a path paved not with beliefs, but with practice, with presence, with compassion. And compassion always begins here, with you. Can you speak to yourself as you would to a frightened child? Can you forgive yourself for what you didn't know? For the moments when you closed your heart because it felt too dangerous to keep it open. This is not indulgence, it's medicine. The tenderness you offer yourself becomes the tenderness you can offer the world. So many people are hungry for love, for peace, for meaning, but they search in places that cannot satisfy. They look outside, when the temple has always been within. Your pain is not a punishment, it is a doorway. Your longing is not weakness, it is the call of your soul, asking to come home. And you, with your wrinkles and your regrets, your soft courage and your hard-earned grace, you are worthy of that return. Don't wait for life to be easier. Don't wait to be someone else. Start with the breath. Start with the truth. Start with the question, what part of me have I been afraid to meet, and can I greet it now with love? In the golden hour of your life, whether you're 20 or 80, there comes a quiet reckoning. Not a crisis, but a calling. Something in you begins to whisper, there must be more than this. Not more success, not more stuff, but more realness, more being, more soul. And yet that voice is often drowned out by noise, not the noise of the world, but the noise inside the loops of thought. The recycled fears, the silent rules we've never questioned. You should be this. You shouldn't be that. You must fix yourself before you can rest. But what if rest is not something you earn, but something you remember? There is a reason why so many people, late in life, find themselves drawn to silence, to nature, to the teachings of the Buddha, to the simplicity of breath. Because somewhere, beneath the noise of ambition and expectation, they feel the tug of what truly matters. Have you felt it? That soft ache when you watch the wind move through trees, that catch in your chest when an old song makes you cry for reasons you can't explain. That longing isn't weakness, it's your soul remembering its home. In the Pali Canon, it is said that the Buddha described the spiritual path as a process of unbinding, like loosening the knots that keep a bird from flying. We are not here to become something more, we are here to release what we are not. A teacher once described the self like a clenched fist, tight with stories, trauma, control, and awakening is simply the gradual opening of that fist. Not forced, not rushed, just one finger at a time. The truth is, much of what we carry is inherited. We carry our parents' fears, our culture's definitions of success, our religion's rules for worthiness, but none of these are the measure of your soul. You are not your productivity. You are not your body. You are not even your name. These things change. They fall away. But the awareness behind them, the presence you feel when you sit quietly and simply watch your life unfold, that is who you are. And when you begin to identify with that still, spacious presence rather than the ever-changing story of your ego, something shifts. You stop arguing with life. You start listening to it. There is a Buddhist parable about a man crossing a river. He builds a raft to get to the other side. But when he arrives, he begins to carry the raft on his back, through the forest, everywhere he goes. Eventually, the weight becomes unbearable, but he clings to it because the raft once saved his life. We do this too. We carry coping mechanisms, old beliefs, roles we no longer need, because at one point they helped us survive. But survival is not the same as living. The invitation is to ask, what raft am I still carrying that I no longer need? You don't have to discard everything, just what's heavy, just what no longer brings peace. And when you let go, you make space. Space for wonder, for presence, for the small miracles we so often miss. The steam curling from a cup of tea, the hush of twilight settling on your windowsill, the feel of your own breath, unhurried, complete. These are not small things. These are life itself, speaking in its native tongue. The sacred is not elsewhere. It's here, in this moment, in this breath. And the more you learn to return to it, not with guilt, but with gratitude, the more life begins to shimmer again, like a pond when the wind stops, like the heart when it finally lets go. There is a tenderness in realizing how brief this life truly is, not the kind that wounds, but the kind that softens, like rain on dry soil, like a lullaby sung at the edge of sleep. In the awareness of death, we don't grow morbid. We grow merciful, toward ourselves, toward others, toward the fragile beauty of the world. It's easy to forget, in the midst of bills and routines and endless errands, that we are living miracles, that the odds of your being here, right now, breathing, feeling, wondering, are so slim, so astonishing, that they border on impossible. And yet here you are. You with your particular scars and secret dreams, your regrets and your quiet hopes. You, blinking beneath the same sky that has watched over billions before you, emperors and beggars, poets and monks, mothers and children, all of them passing like leaves on the wind. The same wind that now brushes against your cheek. There's a practice in Buddhism called anicca, the contemplation of impermanence, not just of death, but of every moment. The way laughter fades, the way flowers bloom and fall, the way even pain, when fully felt, eventually dissolves. Nothing stays. Not joy, not sorrow, not even you. And rather than resist this, the path is to bow to it. There's an old Zen koan, "This too will pass." It's said not with resignation, but with reverence, because when you truly grasp that everything is passing, you begin to hold each moment as sacred. You stop waiting for better ones. You stop needing more time. You begin to love what is, not what could be. I once met a woman named Margaret, in her 80s. She had lost 2 children, battled cancer, lived through the death of a spouse, and still her eyes sparkled like morning dew. She wasn't naive. She was awake. I asked her once, "How do you stay so light?" She smiled. "I've learned to cry when it hurts, laugh when it passes, and give thanks that I got to feel any of it at all. That's it, isn't it? We don't get to control the script. We don't even get to stay for long. But we do get to be here, eyes open, heart soft, willing to witness the miracle of being alive. There is nothing you need to become. There is no spiritual finish line, only this breath and then the next. When we live in that way, something beautiful unfolds. We stop clinging to what we cannot keep. We start loving without conditions. We begin to understand that presence is more powerful than perfection. Maybe you have spent too long trying to fix what was never broken. Maybe you have waited for the pain to disappear before allowing yourself to feel joy. Maybe right now you're holding your breath, waiting for life to finally begin. And maybe, just maybe, this is it. Not later, not someday. Now, the wind outside your window, the rhythm of your own pulse, the quiet miracle of still being here. To remember that you will die is to remember that you are not dead yet. So live fully, live gently, live truthfully. And when the end comes, as it will for us all, may it find you with nothing left unspoken, no kindness withheld, no breath unlived. The person who has learned to love themselves no longer fears losing anything.